Hey everybody, it's Greg from Nexus Property Management, and would you believe it, who I have across from me, Mr. Steve Conti, notorious Rhode Island eviction attorney. Steve, how you doing?
Pretty good, Greg, very good.
And what's funny about this interview is my boss, Nick, said you will never in a million years get a minute of Steve's time for an interview, so I got an hour today. I'm very excited about that. And Steve, what do you have to say to Nick?
Nick, I was looking forward to coming here, sitting with Greg, seeing your place. I've never seen it. I missed always the party, so I never get to get here. So I'm happy I am finally here.
Cool, man. So I want to cover a bunch of random things. We'll talk about coronavirus. We'll talk about all those things. But before I get into that, how did you become an attorney, period? So like what year, where'd you go to school? What was your goal?
Let me back it up. My father had owned real estate from the 50s. So from the time I was 12 years old, I used to help him repair stuff. One of the few attorneys that could do electrical and plumbing. And I actually bought properties and did a lot of it myself at one point or another. But I always liked real estate, and I actually became a real estate broker prior to becoming an attorney. And I actually took the exam. So I'm one of the few attorneys that actually took the broker's exam. And I was a broker, and then for about a real estate agent for about a year. I went to law school, took a year off, became a broker, and then went back to law school. I graduated, I went to Texas Southern University, Thurgood Marshall School of Law. And the reason I went there, at that time, the tuition in Boston was $4,000 a semester back then in the 80s. Out-of-state tuition in Texas, in Houston, Texas, was $750. So for the money I saved, I used for living expenses, so I didn't have to run back and forth and waste 2 hours a day commuting back and forth. So that's why I chose to go to Texas. It was a difficult adjustment the first year I was there. Around the school, there were people living in literally shacks. They were about the size of a one-car garage up on cinder blocks, like you were in a third world. By the time the second semester on, they had cleaned it up, got rid of a lot of them. But I ended up really liking Houston. I took the bar exam there. I passed, came here, passed the Rhode Island one. So I'm inactive in Texas, but I'm still licensed there. I still have friends there. Had gone back to San Antonio. It was, in the wedding party of a friend that I went to school with. And then, I guess, jumping from the real estate to the law, it was like a natural progression. We had a family attorney, Bob McLean. She's 80. He's going on 81 now. Still around. I went in with him in 42 Way Bassett Street. It's part of the Hilton. There's a hotel across from the arcade. We were up on like the 8th or 9th floor. Then the monks bought it, and the monks threw us out. But he gave me incentive to do it. I started to work for him from 1988. I went off on my own with his guidance. There was like 8 attorneys in the office. And the good part is, if you had a question, you could go to one guy for this question, one guy, and you'd learn, and you had different people of all different backgrounds. And that was great. Matter of fact, Paul in my office now, that we share the office space with, we own my office on Smith Street. He was in that office initially, so that's how I met Paul. And then after we kind of got thrown out of there, because the monks wanted to move in,
It happens.
then I went to Bob's house. He had a house on 92 Carpenter Street, and that was our office for a while.
In Pawtucket? Or?
No, actually in Providence, right along the highway. They built the brand new police station.
Got it.
That's the only house they left standing.
Yep.
That house is like 1836, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So they left it. And then after Bob sold the building, Paul happened to be looking for real estate. And I went in with him at the time I had the cash. He said, yeah, I'll go find it. So I love my office, because I used to live right down the street on Mount Pleasant Avenue to Smith, so it was easy.
Yeah.
So we've been there ever since, and it's a great office. And when I first started to practice, I used to do everything. And that's a problem for anybody, because you have different sets of rules for every court. Bankruptcy court has one rule. Domestic, workers' comp, district court, superior court. I remember one time when I first started to practice, I was having a trial in superior court, and I quoted a rule of evidence law. And the attorney and the judge kind of looked at me. It was Judge Rogers at the time. He kind of was. I said, we were going for practice. I said, let me just check it, Your Honor. So after I left, I came back. Sorry, Judge, that was Texas law, because I just taken the bar exam. I was right with the wrong state.
Wrong state.
But so, and again, how I ended up doing evictions, again, it was a natural progression of getting rid of the stuff I kind of didn't like.
Got
And being in the real estate business prior, having family who owns real estate, and all my business today is strictly word of mouth. I mean, it's this
Yeah.
person recommended. I don't even advertise anymore. I mean, there's probably a little advertisement in the yellow pages, but
Yeah.
I don't pay for any advertising anymore. It's strictly word of mouth. And so over the years, it just narrowed down. I do about 1,000 evictions a year,
Wow.
and it's keeping me busy. Now, if you want to get to the corona, well, I used to do like 15, 20 cases a day. Nick can attest to it. And I used to have a line in the hallway. But I used to be able to make my own schedule, and I was there, all day. But I got everything done in a day. And I was in Providence one day, Canton another, and you leave Friday open for like appeals in Superior Court. Since they closed down the court, they closed the court down and basically screwed everything up. I know the governor and the chief judge is trying to protect these tenants.
Yep.
And I'll get into that because that relates to both of us for sure.
Yep.
Is that they're trying to say to the tenant, oh, don't throw these tenants out, they don't have the money working. They're too short-sighted, they're not looking down the road, they're not looking, saying, okay, well, if you have an FHA, you could defer your money, defer the payment. But the problem is, on 99% of these evictions, these tenants are judgment-proof, you're never gonna see the money. In the old days, a landlord would normally get beat 1 or 2 months worth of rent.
Right.
Now they're getting beat 5 and 6 months rent on average, uncollectible money. And the worst part is they're refusing to put certain cases on the calendar. Until recently, they just started putting commercial cases on. And these are cases that were on the calendar from March of last year, prior to COVID, and they just stopped. I still have several cases that haven't even been reached yet. And this is from rent back now from January that has not been made. So they're kind of learning as they go. The problem is now, everybody's so afraid of COVID, they schedule it. So there's cases like I filed last week, the cases get right now about 6 weeks out. The day of court, or the day before, the tenant calls and goes, I got COVID. 2 weeks, they get an automatic 2-week continuance. Then you can go to court, have a trial, they take an appeal, guess what? I had a case get appealed 2 weeks ago. They gave me September 11th for a date of September 11th. Then the last Superior Court case I did was June 3rd, and that was from a Way leftover case that, again, back from January. The judge gave them another 2 weeks to move out prior to entering the order before I could remand it back down to district court to get an execution. And then once you get the execution, it takes another week to get them out. So I'm going to try to amend some judgments to get the amount of money owed back up to where it should be. But the problem is, again, you're wasting your time if you're not going to collect any money
Right.
from the tenants.
Well, let me ask you this question. Is, the route that the courts are taking and following, is that something that, justices meet and they make an opinion? Or is that a call from the governor's office that says, we want to try to do this? Like
I think that started from the governor trying to stop basically the evictions at one point, and then in turn slow them down to basically, they had us for 10 weeks, 2.5 months. They closed the court from mid-March, after March 13th was the last day, and they reopened the court on June 2nd, okay? And then when you filed on June 2nd, you got a date at least a month or 6 weeks out. And judges can still today, and not continuing cases, there was a couple of cases where they had an execution. I finally got an execution, send the sheriff, the constable, over to the person's house. They run to court for a motion to stay, and the judge gives them another 2 weeks with no money. And that's the other problem. None of these judges are following the law. Everything executive order, like by law, when you file an eviction, you're supposed to be in court 9 days later. Mm-hmm. They're just suspending the statute. As far as the money, there's another statute that says if you give somebody an extension, they're supposed to pay the rent. They don't do that. I had a case yesterday, unfortunately, where we were there for an eviction. The rent's $2,200 a month, haven't paid 4 months rent. They asked for a continuance. The judges said, okay, but I'll do it, but you have to pay the money. They're supposed to pay it right then and there.
Right.
No, he said, pay it tomorrow, which is today. Of course, I get an email today.
Oh,
I don't have the money, I couldn't get it, but they still get their 2-week continuance. And that's another $1,100 out of the landlord's pocket.
Right.
So that's my frustration, is they're not following what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And it's causing me stress, it's getting my clients upset.
Yeah.
My clients then in turn are upset at me because like, what are we paying you for?
Right.
And there's nothing I can do. I've argued in front of a judge a week ago about giving this guy, we had a trial for non-payment. His biggest beef was, I didn't get my unemployment, I applied for the COVID relief, I'm
Yeah.
waiting for the 5,000, the landlord, signed the W-2 but never received the money. So I said, Judge, you gotta enter the judgment. No, I don't wanna put a judgment against his record. So I'm gonna continue it 3 weeks to see if you get money. Well, the problem with continuing it to the 28th was now he can wait until after the first, appeal it. He'll be there until mid-October
At least.
without paying any money.
Right.
And then this had the cojones to, if you give a landlord money during an eviction, the landlord has to send a non-waiver letter within 10 days saying, I've got your money, but I'm still gonna proceed with the eviction. This guy hadn't paid money for months. The day of court, he goes, I just made a deposit in the landlord's account. And the judge, okay, but we'll deal with that later. The next day I found out he made a $25 deposit. The rent's $1,560. And he's trying to screw the landlord basically, because if the landlord now didn't send that notice, the landlord would be in trouble. And the funniest part is I've already evicted this guy twice before for 2 other people. So he's, I know him, he knows me, and he knows the game. And then he calls me yesterday and says, don't send me anything else in the mail. Talk to my attorney.
Okay.
So he gives me the guy's number. I call him. The guy goes, I'm not representing him. So again, crazy things happen. Nobody's following the rules.
Yep. So let me ask you this. You said it's a short-sighted approach, the way it's being handled now.
Yeah.
What are some of the repercussions that are coming within 3 months, 6 months, 12 months?
Here's the problem that I see.
Yeah.
They're penalizing the mom and pop
Yep.
owners that either have a conventional loan or no loan, but they may be waiting for this money. They're living on this money. I had a gentleman the other day, his landlord, he's like 91 years old. He's counting on this money to survive. That was his, he worked for this house all his life, and now it's paid, and he's trying to get the money, and you got people not paying the rent. Well, you got a judgment-proof tenant.
Define
Judgment-proof. Judgment-proof means regardless of the money they owe you, you can never collect it. That's judgment-proof.
Is that your opinion, or is that a legal definition?
Judgment-proof is a legal term. Basically, it says if you're on any type of public assistance, whether it be Social Security, welfare, SSDI, the statute says you can never collect any money from them until 1 year after they're off that assistance, which is a year after they're dead, basically. So there's no money to collect.
So judgment-proof means you're not getting the money, don't even try.
No, it's monopoly money. That's what I tell my clients. You're dealing with monopoly money at this point. Let's just worry about possession at this point.
Yep.
So you got someone, but they still have to pay their mortgage. Even if they have no mortgage, they're still going to pay their taxes, their insurance, their water, their sewer.
Yep.
Now let's get back to the person who actually has a mortgage. They have to pay the mortgage. That mortgage isn't even deferred on the federal level. If you have a federal FHA or VA, it's deferred. Doesn't mean you don't owe it. It just means they're going to pile it up on the end. You still owe that money. So the tenants basically, as I was saying, before they would only beat you a couple of months, maybe you could cushion it. You had enough cushion to survive it. But now landlords losing 6 months or 8 months worth of rent are going to end up losing the house 6 months from now because there's no way for them to make up that money. So I hate to say it, but I think there's going to be a flood of properties, foreclosures and sales on the market in 6 months, I'd say. 6 months to a year.
6 months from today or 6 months from March?
6 months from now, I'd say. Because now they're finally coming to court, but what good is it when they're there 6 months? Now they're there 6 months, because even if they didn't pay from March, most of them didn't pay from January. The ones I'm dealing with now are basically March, April, but even that, so you're at 4 months now. By the time they take their appeal, they're at 5 or 6 months. Plus they paid me. Then they added new forms now. Now I have to fill out affidavits prior to filing.
Cover letter?
Right, you're going back, they got rid of cover sheets years ago because it was just another wasted piece of paper.
Yeah.
So they're bringing it back now.
Bring it back.
And they modified it on the cuff, saying you have to say that you negotiated or tried to collect the rent from the tenant. So I don't even sign them anymore, I just let the landlord sign it. And they said, well, it says plaintiff attorney. I said, I know, but I'm not the one calling the tenant to ask for the money. You are. You sign it. Then the other form is the affidavit form. It's the CARES Act affidavit, which says you have to certify on the oath and penalty of perjury that you don't have a federal mortgage on it, that the tenant is not a Section 8 tenant before they allow you to file the eviction. So I unfortunately had to go up my fee like $40 just to cover the extra paper.
Yeah.
But I still feel I'm one of the lower guys or at the bottom because I do volume and charge a flat $500.
Yep.
But the out-of-pocket costs are $160 for every eviction filed.
Right.
So, but that's how I make my money, by volume. I don't make a killing at $300 or $300.
So is your volume going down now that you're only doing 8
Oh,
cases?
big time, big time. Yeah, because I'm only doing, like I said, I average 15 to 20 cases a week in the old days. I had 1 case on Monday. I had 2 cases today in Kent. You had 2, and that's 5. I got 4 tomorrow. That's 9.
So you're doing half.
I'm doing half of what I should be doing.
But
my bills are still the same like everybody else.
Right.
I still have a secretary to pay for the office. They still got to pay the filing fees. So it's, thank God I'm one of the lucky ones that I don't have any mortgages on my property.
Yep.
And I have 35 units, and my tenants, I've only had maybe 3 not pay, and 2 are on payment plans without an eviction. 1 I had to file an eviction.
So when are they going to let up and push down on the throttle and maybe expand the calendar?
I don't see that happen until next year.
Really?
Yeah. At this point, because think about it, they're giving me dates as of today. They updated my calendar. I'm at August 31st. So as of this week or next week, they're going to be into September, October, November. You know what happens in December? That's another thing that irks me big time, is that the court closes down the last 2 weeks. They use the argument that, everybody's on vacation, which I can see that. But the problem that I have is they don't issue executions during those 2 weeks when they should. Okay. Does everybody celebrate Christmas? No. There's a constitution. The Constitution says there should be a separation of church and state. Why does the state get to tell me or force me to give someone a religious holiday that I can't move them out because it's a religious time or just because it's the holiday? But they do it every year.
Well, they could say New Year's is a universal holiday.
Well, they do. Well, it is because they don't let you get back on track until January 2nd.
Right.
So basically from the last 2 weeks of December until January 2nd, you can't, even if you have an execution, if you got it the day before, you can't use it now until the 2nd.
So since you've been doing evictions, how long has it been, roughly? 20
Practice
years?
at 30, now 88.
So you did your first eviction in 1988. Do you remember his or her name?
No, I don't remember that one. I do remember my first fee was $50, and I was so excited that I got $50.
You should go back to those.
Now you make 5 and you're like, yeah, so.
Only doing 9 cases a week. So my question is, do you think there is the need for humility in the court system, or should it be like you said, no church, no holidays, let's just get to the meat and
I
potatoes?
think if they were just fair about it.
So you think it's not
I
fair?
I think it's too subjective. And the judges don't follow the rules as they should because in their equitable jurisdiction, that's what they usually say. No, I'm doing this or I'm doing that, which is not really following the rules, but they do it. I've objected, but it does me no good,
Okay.
or anybody else for that matter. So you just kind of have to bite your tongue and let it go. I don't know what else to tell you on that. I think everybody should be fair. When I meet a tenant in the hallway, I'm trying to look a fair deal, honestly, for both sides. I mean, there are attorneys that would basically, years ago, a new attorney came on the scene, I'm not going to say his name, was basically in Kent County, I remember very clearly, this young girl was being evicted. And he basically lied to her in the hallway, saying, if you don't sign this stipulation, you're going to be out in 2 days, the moving company. And she was in tears, literally in tears. And it was a lie. And I talked to her. So I don't do that to people. I say, look, here's the rules. The rules are, if we have a judgment today, if we have an eviction, I get a judgment, I can get an execution in 6 days. Then the sheriff comes and the movers and what have you. So I tell them they have 5 days, whether they appeal or don't appeal. But normally, when you know the appeal period. See, before the appeal, when they appeal, you'd be in court, in Superior Court, normally like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So you would cut to the chase, say, look, I don't want to cause my landlord to have to pay me another $500 in Superior Court. So I said, look, when the people, they're not willing to negotiate, because some people, unfortunately, just don't have any money and don't have anywhere to go, so they won't negotiate with you because they're living for free now. If they move, they have to pay. So they will stay there until the judge tells them they have to move, okay? So, but for the ones that are willing to move but need a little more time, I say to the landlord, like I just did one yesterday for Michelle in Kent County, and Legal Services was on the other side. They know, and I know, if they appeal it yesterday or today or the next few days, it's gonna be mid-September before we get to trial. Then I have to file a motion to dismiss or have a trial, and if I have a trial, it's another 20 days from there before I can get an execution from Superior Court. So I basically told the guy, look, he's already beat you 7 months rent. You're gonna have to unfortunately eat another month's rent. Or if you wanna do it, I'll go to trial with you, but they're gonna appeal it. You're gonna have to pay me or Michelle another $500. You gotta waste another day standing in court in Superior Court. So why not just do the fair thing? Give them the month. I'll tally up all the rent to the end of August. Move out September 1st.
Perfect.
He agreed. Some landlords won't agree because they're so angry that this person has already beat them. So this guy beat this landlord for 8 months rent. I mean, luckily the rent wasn't that much. I think it was like $875. But there are some rents that are, $1,500, $2,000, depending on the property.
Yeah.
And that's big money. And people can't. It's hard to recoup 10 grand in a shot on that.
What's the biggest rent amount you've ever seen?
$250,000 and change, 250 and change.
Per month?
No. Oh, you mean for a judgment? No, I evicted. It used to be Gold's Gym up on Smith Street years ago in North Providence, and that was the biggest judgment.
So there was $250,000
that the guy ate. Yeah. So he.
How many months rent was that?
I think the rent was like $15,000 a month.
So this guy waited like 2 years.
We tried to work with him. The guy would give him a couple of dollars and not, and it dragged out, and he kept on falling further and further behind. Yeah, on that. Yeah, I think that. I mean, the commercial ones are obviously more. The average commercial one, I have a few right now. I mean, they range it in from $2,500 to $10,000 a month on the commercials.
And these are just getting put back on the calendar,
Right.
when arguably they should have been first.
Long time ago. Yeah, I've got one right now. It's still not on the calendar. Rent's $7,000 a month, and they've been waiting, and they don't even have a trial date yet.
What kind of business you have to say?
It was a laundromat. It was a commercial space, a laundromat.
Okay.
But right now, and I've already got a call from an attorney that the tenant's going to file bankruptcy if he feels pressured too much. So if he files bankruptcy, now you're on hold for another 6 months, and you have to get permission from the bankruptcy court to remove the stay in order to proceed with the eviction. Because once you file an eviction, it's for that money that goes backwards and not forwards. But you still have to get an attorney in bankruptcy court, and I don't do that. I actually intentionally did not pay my $10 renewal fee in federal court because I don't want to go there. And I don't want anybody to say, oh, can you do this for me? My answer is no, sorry, not licensed anymore. So $10 not well spent, okay?
Jeez.
On that, yeah.
So these commercial rentals could be a total nightmare if it goes sideways.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a residential one now that I just filed a motion for issuance of execution. They owe $20,000 in rent. They put some people once in a while have an accident case and they agree to put a lien on it. And this one did, but it's still pending, a year later, and then she stopped paying rent. Oh, the best ones, and it happens a lot, is this particular tenant, mother and father are in the apartment. They move out. They've let their kids move in. Now the landlord's stuck with 2 people that are not his tenant. That gets a little messy because certain judges interpret that as different ways. They say, well, they're not your tenant, so you can't evict them for non-payment of rent. You have to do a tenant at sufferance, which is basically a termination letter. And if you have to file a termination case, you're talking 4 to 6 months to get the person up that your tenant put in. Another way that I'm trying to do it is just, even though the parents said they moved out, the landlord went over there and said, who's this? And they say, I'm still here. This is still my apartment, even though the kids are living in it. Until you evict me, they stay. Okay, so I filed a motion for issuance of execution. wait for that to get on the calendar. But, and then the problem is if the kid comes in and says, oh, the gas or electric is in my name, see, I'm a tenant. You never served them, now you gotta start all over again. Oh, so there's many ways that they can basically stick it to the landlord.
And there's not many ways as us as landlords
To protect,
can
no.
stick it or
How do you
maneuver. We just here's the law. Oh, we have to follow that.
Right.
But the tenants can just
Yeah, maneuver
somebody
in.
and change the name and I'm doing bankruptcy. Like
Absolutely. There's so many ways that the landlord could get beat. It's crazy. And it's a lot of money and a lot of time. And people just don't understand it. And that was the other thing. When I started buying real estate myself, I was probably in my 30s, I guess. My father helped me with the first down payment.
Yeah.
And then I was able to buy multiple properties. He used to own properties at Federal Hill and Mount Pleasant, and he retired, so I bought those two from him. Then I bought some more properties up Federal Hill. But there were times that my law practice supported the repairs of the houses. And those, back then, those days, there was we're talking $50,000 mortgage or $75,000 or 100 tops. So not like today where these units are going for 100 grand a piece. And even if the interest rate is low, that's still a big nut every month.
Sure.
So that's the only advice I would give anybody else looking to buy a house or owns a house is that you have to have some type of cushion, because that house isn't initially going to support itself with the mortgage, taxes, or insurance, especially when you need repairs. And every time a tenant moves out, you're looking, in my estimation, you're out at least $3 grand. You're out a couple of months rent, then you got to redo the apartment, then you have to rent it again, and whether you rent it yourself or you hire a real estate agent, then you have to pay a fee again.
Right.
So every turnover you're losing thousands of dollars. So you have, and then again, if you need repairs, you have to have that cash flow somewhere. What I did after was when I paid my mortgages off, I in turn got a line of credit. It's only certain banks will give you a line of credit on a commercial piece of property. So I was able to use it and put it back, and so it's like using a credit card in a sense, but at 5 or 6% versus 20% on your credit card. And it was always good to have. If a deal came up, you could offer cash and buy something back then.
So if you didn't buy a property, say your dad didn't help you out, and you didn't get into the real estate business, where do you think you would have landed, or where would you put?
I probably still would have been an attorney, but not as rich. Because the money I made was more from the real estate. Because I had sold my real estate on the last boom in 2007 or so, give or take. I cashed out.
Yep.
Then I did some hard money lending for a while. Then I bought a beach house, and I spent the money. I enjoyed it for a while.
Bought a motorcycle?
No, I had the motorcycle from my time I was 16. I had a motorcycle.
Wow, okay.
But I had bought that motorcycle. I had two of them at the time. It's a Honda Valkyrie. It's like a Goldwing, a 6-cylinder. I bought it brand new out of the crate. And then I bought the beach house, and at the time, going back and forth with the wife, and they like go to the beach or just sit there, and like I was twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah.
So I bought another motorcycle to have down the beach. But I've always had a motorcycle since I was 16. I still have it. I don't use it as much as I want to. But the real estate, and then fortunately I got divorced, sold the house, but then I started reinvesting real estate with a partner. Our first property was back in Woonsocket on Chester Street.
Beautiful.
At the time, it seemed like a great deal. Hey, a 6-unit and a 5-unit next door to each other, 11 units for $110,000, and you had 4 tenants in it already. Sounded like a great deal. No, it wasn't. I think we ended up spending at least $600,000 redoing both buildings.
Really?
Well, the problem was one of the buildings that had 2 tenants in it. The day we looked at it, it was a cold winter month, and like heat is like going through the doorknob hole that was missing. They were stealing gas and electric, and they did it themselves. So finally, when I went to go turn the gas and electric on the other units, the National Grid gets in and says, all these electrical panels are all damaged. We have to disconnect you. Once they disconnect you at the telephone pole, you have to bring the whole house up to code. Yeah, so all new electrical, so that's what killed us right there. That was like 30 grand right there just to reconnect to the pole, because now they had to put a whole new system on the outside. We had to upgrade all the interior. We had to then put the alarm system in. Oh yeah, it was, and then the house next door, we're redoing that one. The guy putting the roof on, It blows off for the storm, he had it covered, soaked the whole house, we had to gut the entire house. Then we bought a house on Gorman. No, thought it was another great deal.
What was the street?
Gorman and Elm Street in Woonsocket.
Oh,
It's on the side of Social. It was two houses, a 7-unit, an illegal 7, and a 6-unit that was burnt. Got it for $35,000. Sounds like a great deal, right?
No.
$400,000 later, we had to knock we knocked the house down that was burnt, figured we would have a parking lot.
Yeah.
Well, when we knocked the house down, we never got in it because it was boarded up. The foundation was literally round stones stacked up on each other. They weren't even cement in between. It's like Fred Flintstone built this house. Cost us $40,000 for a retaining wall. Then the same thing happens to this, and then we start redoing this house. A different contractor, mind you, was putting a roof on for $12,000, blows off in a storm, soaks the entire house. Again, different house, different contract, and we didn't get that much from insurance. Believe me, we lost money. We had to end up gutting the entire house. We gutted it to the rafters, redid it, ended up putting it as a 4-family, but it's a total lead-free house. So those two houses are lead-free. That's the only good thing. But when we're a little different. When we go through the houses, we rather just do it and get it done.
Yep.
New heating systems, new windows. This way you don't have to worry about it anymore. If somebody breaks something, that happens. But when you leave an old house, you have multiple problems always
Sure.
kicking back on you. So, but I've been, but again, my real estate practice has been supported by my law practice. We've been dumping money for years, my partner and I, into the real estate in order to pay repairs, basically. And the last unfortunate property, the last money pit we had purchased was a 9-unit in West Warwick.
38,000?
No, 175, but
Okay,
there
moving on.
were 6 tenants out of 9. There were 4 stores and 5 residential units.
Okay.
Okay, I went in, I saw the floor tilting here and there, and there was a little issue.
Yeah.
Well, it was more than expected. We're already into it for 5 and we're only half done. There's an structural engineer now. We did half the house. We had to put LVLs with steel beams. It cost us over $100,000 just to redo the fire alarm because it's 9 units. It's a special fire alarm with the antenna. And then all 10 meters all upgraded. Then there was no gas in the house. We put gas in, put 5 boilers in. Then in all the stores, we put the radiant heat. They look like a light panel, like a flat light panel, because we didn't feel like running gas, so we just put those in. And it's a nice piece of property, but it cost us more than what we expected because we knew there was some structure, but not to the extent. And until you ripped open the wall, you didn't know. So that's the only advice I can give to anybody buying a house is have a good inspection, and whatever you think the repairs are going to be, just double it to be on the safe side. And that's kind of where you're going to go. I figured I would need like another 150 or so to put it back because I knew I needed the electric and the alarm. So, that would have put me at 3. So that's why we're at 5. But we're still not done. So again, you have to almost work to pay for your real estate. If you think you're just going to buy real estate and live off it, unless you buy it cash and your money's sitting in the bank doing nothing,
Right.
that's the only way you're going to make money. But if you have to have a mortgage on your property, you got to be careful. So that's why I think there's going to be a lot of foreclosures down the pike.
So speaking of being careful, have you ever been attacked or beat up by a tenant or an owner or somebody in court shaking the elevator?
No, I've been verbally attacked at the office, in court.
That's
No one's ever physically harmed me.
Really?
I don't usually escalate the situation.
Right.
If you owe me money, you don't want to pay me, okay, I'll see you in court and walk away.
Yep.
There have been people in court that the sheriffs had to get.
Away from you.
Yeah, they had to separate us. They would just scream, and some people you just can't talk to. They'll just yell over you and not listen. So those people. The only attack that ever happened to me was a pit bull. I went to go collect the rent one day. I was on Penn Street. And
In Federal Hill?
Federal Hill. Now, usually there's people all around all the time.
Yeah.
The one day, there's no one there. There's no one around. This neighbor had a pit bull, and the pit bull got loose. And it started to follow me around the car, and it was growling at me. I have a permit to carry.
Yep.
I had a little 22, 25 caliber. And now I'm I just couldn't get in the car fast enough, so I reached over and I one shot. I didn't hit the dog. I went over, and the dog just scared and ran away. The neighbor who owned the dog then accused me of letting his dog out just so I could shoot at it. It's like, come on, the dog ran into your house. But that's the only time that there was any, and then of course everybody in the neighborhood came out, but a little late. But that, yeah, no, I've been lucky with that, and I'll tell you, just like you require your tenants to pay online or pay by a check. 'Cause I used to go out physically and collect the money, and I got to a point where like I can't do this anymore, so I sent everybody notices. Either you can, luckily I have a secretary in office. I said, if you want to come and pay cash, come in, I'll give you a receipt. Or if not, I would do envelopes, pre-addressed envelopes.
Yes, ship it in.
There you go, drop it in the mail, and that's all. And I used to, about 15 years ago, one of my clients I was doing evictions for had like 60 pieces of property, Oneyville, Manton Avenue.
Yeah.
And he used to go collect the rents, and he used to say, I'd go there and collect the rent, and they say, come back next week. And he couldn't take it anymore, so he asked me to stop collecting his rent. And at first I was like, he goes, well, I want you to do it my way. I want you to physically go collect. So can you picture this, a young attorney driving a red XJ8 Jaguar on Manton Avenue with bundles of cash. I thought I was gonna get killed. So after about a year of doing that, I just said, look, Bob, do it my way or I'm not doing it. I can't, I'm not gonna risk my life for your rent. And so I got him to do the same thing. So that would be one thing I would recommend to any landlord is stop going for the cash. And if you do pay cash, you have to give them a receipt, because they will get screwed in court. Because here's what happens. If you don't give your tenant a receipt, and now the tenant falls behind or pays piecemeal, and you're the tenant, and I say, you owe me $1,000. And you say, no, I gave you that $500 the other day, you didn't give me a receipt. Guess what? The judge believes the tenant because it's the landlord's obligation to give that receipt if they pay cash. So basically, you have to walk around, if you go around the properties and about the lead inspections, the lead law, the way that is, it's like if you go physically collect the rent, you should have like a paintbrush in one hand and the rent receipt book in the other. To be careful, because that's another thing. You know, you've got to be careful and get your lead certificates. You have to be able, and every time you rent, you've got to make them sign the rent disclosures. That is $1,000, a technical $1,000 fine every time you don't sign that form, whether you have the lead certificate or not. Right? You have, and I've had some landlords that DEM has whacked them like $8,000, $10,000 because they didn't sign the form. They didn't have the forms filled out. And you know, you're supposed to get a re-lead inspection every 2 years on each unit, up to so many. But if you have a lot, they'll let you stagger so many a year. I mean, right now the inspections are at like a $150 a piece. Cheap. No, and if you have a big house, you have to pay for the inspection every quarter for the fire alarm system. So there's a lot of expenses. People, if they understand the totality, just like starting a business, whether you start this business or somebody starts a convenience store or a donut store. I had a client who opened up a donut shop, put all their life savings, lost $300,000 because the rent was $2,500. They had to build out the store. How many donuts do you need to sell before you can even pay the rent, let alone paying the people? So if you don't work up the numbers in advance, you're dead. You're just throwing away your money. So
you think it's tough to start a business nowadays, especially when you're selling something like you said, coffee, donuts, pizza? Like, do you think it's hard to be a blue-collar business and just pay the bills?
You can't. I don't think you can right now. There's way too many pizza shops and way too many donuts. Right. Like Dunkin' Donuts is like every time you throw a stone, you'll get to another. Like if you go to Mill Spring Avenue, how many Dunkin' Donuts? Right. There's no franchise loyalty on that one. So yeah, and it's like, I know there's a lot of profit margin in a cup of coffee, but there's so many. Yeah, you've got to do your homework to see what kind of business, the location, how much the rent is, what do you think you're gonna make? And that goes for real estate, that goes for selling coffee, donuts, a pizza place. I mean, look, and now, because of COVID, people are not going out. Yeah, they're ordering online, delivery, which maybe some businesses are making more money. A pizza on a delivery would make more money than going there. Okay, but again, how many pizza places are there? Drive around, look how many, you know.
So let me ask you a question. If your office burned to the ground, you didn't have your rentals, what would you be doing as a career? Like if right now I said, Smith Street office just burned down, you can't be an attorney, the courts are closed.
Well, if the courts were closed, I can still be an attorney, but I move somewhere else.
If you can't go back to being an attorney and tomorrow you gotta start a new lifestyle, what would you be doing?
I could be, well, I'm still a real estate broker.
Okay,
Come work for you.
okay.
So.
You can apply, we'll review it.
Do background check. Yeah, I mean, and I could honestly do property management. Like I said, from the time I was 12 years old, I was helping my father repair the properties. So, you know, I have all my own tools. I can do a lot of stuff. I just now, like when I have my properties at Federal Hill, I used to go and do all the work myself. And unfortunately, I used to work 7 days a week, and it unfortunately took a toll on my marriage. So that, you know, I was trying to do better for myself and my family at the detriment of my family, unfortunately. So that's another thing most people need to worry about, is how much time you're going to be putting in these places. Because to hire other people to do, like electricians and plumbers, they're expensive, you know, and you know, certain things you can get away with, certain things you need a permit to do. If you need a permit, now you're at the mercy of these guys charging. The last electrician I used, he was charging like 100 change an hour per guy. And he would send the guys there, oh, they're there, I see them on my GPS that they're there. Yeah, and I pull up and they're both sitting outside smoking. I said, yeah, well, they're entitled to a 15-minute break, but yeah, but not a half hour, two guys, I'm paying for it. So you've got to be careful when you hire somebody, and it's always best to try to get a flat
Number.
price. Yeah, especially on a big contract, like say, hey, I want you to hardwire this house, it's 6 units. Don't do it by the hour. Say, give me a number, give me a contract, and that's it.
Yep.
Because otherwise, you couldn't afford it.
Do you see vendors taking like deposits from homeowners to this day and just not doing work or doing shoddy work and saying, oh, try to sue me, or like, do you see people do that?
Not lately, but I mean, I've got a couple of cases pending myself where one contractor,
Like you personally,
that he...
that screwed you?
Yes, I got several.
Wow.
I've got one that on Gorman, when we were redoing Gorman, we hired this guy who I thought was a plumber. I gave him half up front to buy the heating systems, whatever.
Which is how much?
There were two contracts, one for, I ended up giving him 20,000 altogether. The whole job was 40. Part of it was for the plumbing, part of it was, you know, because the house was gutted, so it was for drain pipes and water pipe was one contract, and the heating system was the other. Well, he started doing the drain pipes, and there was a general contractor still doing the framing, and he calls me and says, Steve, you gotta get over here. The guy was putting the drain pipes crooked. So if somebody flushed the toilet, it wouldn't drain. So I went, I said, basically, what are you doing? Try again. He did it, screwed it up. I said, you're fired. Then a relative of his who referred, oh, please give him another chance. Please give him another chance. So I gave him another chance to do it. The general contractor calls me again. Now, we had just put all new framework, all new floor, and there was dirt under the first one that we were going to pour cement in. So to put the drain pipe underneath, all he had to do was push the dirt away to lower the drain pipe.
Yeah.
He cuts into the joist to put the drain pipe in. That was the last straw. I fired him. Bottom line, still haven't got my 20 grand back. That's still in suit. Am I gonna see any money? Probably not. He's probably judgment proof at this
So
point.
how come, what's the judgment for if nothing happens? Like, what are the courts doing to improve that? Like,
Nothing.
oh, here's your judgment, thanks for coming next. What is that doing for us as business and property owners who are pushing the communities and the state forward?
Nothing.
Without us, there's nothing.
There's nothing. Here's the thing. Once every couple of years, you'll get a call from a tenant that they want to pay the back judgment off.
Because they're getting a mortgage.
They're getting a mortgage, they're buying a house. That's the only reason they call, and those are far and few between.
Thank you to the mortgage companies that have those rules.
Yeah, they're right, they gotta clean it up. Yeah, there's no, otherwise you would never see it. That's the only time they ever call, when they're looking to buy a house or even potentially a car for credit, depending, but mostly the houses.
How come you can't garnish wages?
You can, but most of them don't have it. Here's the problem with the garnish the wages. The person is entitled to the first 40 hours at minimum wage protected. So what's minimum wage, $10 right now?
So $400 of their paycheck is off limits.
Off limits, right. And then after that, it's only a certain percentage. And even so, even if you say, okay, you make $600 a week, I want $50 a week, you drag it to court. If the judge now determines they don't have an ability to pay, you still don't get the money. Because say, hey, I got an elderly mother, I got 6 kids, I got a car payment, I just can't afford to pay it. The judge says, okay, come back in 6 months to a year, we'll look at it again. So, you know, I'm tempted to go get extra Monopoly money on Amazon and start giving it to my landlords. Here, you're all set. Because that's what we're dealing with. You know, I've been beat, even though I'm an attorney and I own my own property, I've been beat left and right like everybody else.
You would think you of all people would get beat
No,
none.
right, and I don't take my own advice, you know. I always tell my landlords, okay, on the 16th day, send the 5-day letter. You know, and I feel bad, I let it go a little further, and I don't do it, and I end up getting beat 2 or 3 months worth of rent.
There was an attorney that I met. She was opening, I think her name was Christine Patterson. She was opening her own office right up the road, I think on Cottage Street. And she said,
Yeah, I know who she is, yeah.
She said attorneys are the worst planners and practicers. She said they're so busy doing their own stuff that they fail to heed their own advice or
Sometimes, yeah.
Or plan or, you know, do their wills or whatever. Is that true, or do
Yeah,
you think?
yeah, I think it is. It is, because you're so busy doing everything else, you just can't get to it. Like I have piles on my desk, and I try to organize my piles in priority piles. In priority piles. And of course, the bottom priority always stays at the bottom.
Priority piles.
And I seem never to get to that bottom pile. But and the problem now is also with the calendar changing daily. I'm literally have to print out the calendar every single day and reorganize my files. Like today, they just added another 10 cases, some in between I already had, and some new ones during. So I'm spending like an hour a day just printing out calendars and reorganizing all the files that I filed but weren't assigned, and now they're getting assigned, so now I gotta get a calendar and then stick them in a pile. So I literally an hour a day wasted just reorganizing cases that are going to be heard. And I haven't, you know, and then I tell the secretary at least the week before, here's the pile for next week, email everybody, make sure everybody's on board, and now they have to be there a specific time. They call the case exactly when they're supposed to call it.
The sheriff,
The sheriff.
excuse me.
Was that Scott today?
I believe so. He comes out in the hallway, and there's nobody in the hallway, which there should be 1,000 people in that hallway. And he goes, you know, Waterman versus Garcia, okay, it's 11:41, and they're late. So we go do oil.
Right, but the problem is, I've done a couple like that. I'm halfway through the thing, or even walk out. The tenant walks in, and then the judge takes them, and now we have the whole trial. Now that backs up everybody else behind us. So they're not even adhering to their 20-minute schedule. I was there one day, waited 50 minutes beyond my time because they were doing a trial. And what I got annoyed at was the judge even took a break between their trial to go do some research. What they should have done is at least called out into the calendar, to the hallway, and say, who's formal? You know me, it takes 30 seconds to do an oral proof of claim. Let me out of there. Why are you letting me wait an extra almost an hour because of the people before me can't negotiate something? And let me out of there. And this way, at least you're not backing up. You want to let the contested cases back up, I can see that. But don't keep the people who have a stipulation or oral proof there for an hour or so after the fact. So that's another problem that they haven't solved yet. They haven't figured that one out yet.
Do you think that there should be like, all right, Steve's been in the game for 30 years, he should get preference, he should go first?
No, just the opposite, actually.
That's how you get treated?
Yes, and specifically, that's how we're getting treated. They're saying, because there's only like 5 of us that do a lot of
and who are the 5?
Me, Mike Crane,
Mike Crane.
Murray Garaboff, Paul Regasto, and then Sean O'Leary and Chris Murphy. So those are the 5 or 6 that we do a lot of evictions. Murray does the most. I think I'm second. Mike is third, and then Chris and Sean are left, and Paul's after left. Like I said, I do about an average 1,000 a year. Murray probably does like 1,200 in the good years. This year, who knows? Yeah. But anyway, they're just the opposite. They're like, oh, we're not going to give you your day because we don't want you to squeeze out the guy that has one. Okay? And here's the illogic of that. Again, I can do an oral proof in 30 seconds. If you watch other people,
I've seen it.
They bumble around for like minutes on end. Like you're like, is this the never-ending story here? And you waste more time, because now I'm waiting, there's more people in court waiting. And now it's 20 minutes apart, and they've spread my calendar.
Yeah.
I'm in court literally almost every single day from now until the end of August. Before I used to be there one day. So they think that's better, that everybody gets an even shot to get heard. My thing is, if you're going to give me 10 cases a week, there's absolutely no difference if you give me 10 in one day or 10 over the week. The same number of cases are heard for that week. And it would be certainly more efficient from the court's perspective if I were there for one day a week. I would get those 10 done. You would only have one attorney versus 10 different attorneys coming into the courthouse or the courtroom. So you're saving on COVID cleaning by one attorney versus 10 attorneys. And they probably could even scrunch the 20 minutes to 15 minutes apiece if it was just me. So that's my beef. I don't believe their logic to me is off.
So who do you voice your concerns to?
The task force, and the task force.
Which is who?
Which is Murray, Mike, Tiffany Antach of Rhode Island Legal Services, Paul Regasta, and the judges are involved. And I suggest they should do this or do that. And most of the time the answer is thanks, but no thanks. No, we're going to do it our way. Because now, he goes in.
But Murray and Mike are in your same boat, so it shouldn't.
Right, but they don't. But they submit it. But it's up to the chief judge and the other judges to go along, and they've created their own
people making decisions for thousands of us.
And they're not making the right ones. And here's the problem: they've created their own problems. Before, when I filed on a certain day, I knew what day I was going to be in court in all those cases, and they even started limiting those so they would bounce to the next day, so I would have to adjust. But I knew what day I was in court. So I was able to file a bunch in one shot and they'd be in court. One of the judges called me up to the bench last week and said, well, what do you think about this? How's this working or how's that working? I said, well, again, I explained, if you're giving me 10, it should be on one day. Well, we can't arrange them that way because they come in. I said, well, the old days you did. If you and I said, I'm filing them now as I get them. I said, I could file 10 at a time if you want, but I would have to know that they would be there all on the same day. I said, we can go back to doing that. They would just have to go back to what they were doing in the first place. Right. So again, they're creating their own problems, they're creating their own mess, and I don't see any end to it at this point. I honestly don't. Until the COVID thing is like completely over, that they can open the court, or the governor gives permission to say, okay. But I don't even see that. I don't see the end of it. I just can't.
If you could give a message to the governor, what would it be? What would you say? What do you think would be the number one tip or advice that she and her office would want to hear that would make things just smoother for everybody, not just the
I think the governor doesn't understand that all these evictions that we do, these landlords are not looking to throw people on the street. The landlords are just looking for their money. 99% want their money. Yes, you get a couple of bad tenants that this is a quicker way to get them out is because they don't have the money. But most landlords just want their money. They want to be able to pay their bills. They want to be able to pay their taxes. But the problem is we need to get those tenants into court to make the deal. If you keep on delaying, you're doing no one any good. The tenants are not getting any money. The landlord's not getting any money. Now the landlord has to still pay his bills. How do you get your taxes? And so on and so forth. You're creating your own problems down there. You're making a ripple effect. When you drop it in and the waves go bigger, that's what you're doing. By trying to save the pebble, you're blowing out everybody around it. And the other problem is these monies that are supposed to be available. Now they just started a new safe harbor one. I haven't checked into that one. But they had one before that started. And I read in the paper, it was like 3-4 days ago, that they've only helped 25 people. They had 8 weeks to help people, and they only helped 25 people, and 107 were pending. Out of all the evictions I do and all the people I know, only 2 have, out of that 25, 2 have received a check. One was actually me, from one of my tenants that was not into an eviction, and the second one was an eviction for a different client. So they're not dispersing the money. I don't know what the problem is, but the money, yes, should just go to the lawyer. You want a simple solution? The simplest solution to settle this, if you have that $7 million there, Have the guy with the checkbook come and sit at court. He can write a check out for everyone, and every case would get dismissed, the landlords have their money, the tenants would stay in their apartment, and your taxes would get paid. You want to disperse the 7 million? Sit in court with the checkbook. That
That's
would be my.
exactly what Michelle said today. I asked her, what's the best way to repair this? And she said, don't give money to the tenants. How do you know it's gonna get to the landlord? Just give it to the landlord, and then the tenant gets a rent credit for
Right.
whatever amount that was given to them.
Well, even so, under the old agreement, the old credit that the state had done, the money does go to the landlord if the landlord files a W-2. But the problem is, the landlord can file a W-2, like the one I had that got continued, but still not get the money. Because in the letter it says, well, you can do all this information, but hey, may not be any money available.
Right.
So the landlord is in limbo, not knowing. And the tenants, unfortunately, using that to their advantage by delaying everything.
Right.
Wasting another month and sticking the landlord another month's rent. So yeah, that's my straight advice. Come to court or just call my office and I'll give you my list of cases and you can write a check. I'll give you a total. I mean, back when this started, when March, when they closed down and they said they wanted to settle it, just the cases I had pending in March, they got knocked off the calendar. I just roughly went through the files. My landlords were out $100,000 just on the cases that I had pending back in March.
Wow.
Now, if I ever added it up now, I'm sure I'm at $500,000 easy right now for all the landlords, all the money that they are out right as of we speak right now.
And the thing is, it's like, okay, if a tenant doesn't pay, they move on, they move out, okay. But if a landlord doesn't pay their mortgage or their taxes or their water, their sewer, now you got bigger problems. Now you're gonna have a vacant house boarded up. Now you're gonna have brush overgrown. Now you're gonna have more crime. Now you're gonna have loitering and debris. Like all of these ancillary things are gonna add up. Much worse than, oh, we saved one tenant.
Right, and I'll tell you the reason they don't care, because you don't pay your water bill, what happens? They do a tax sale on it, a water sale. Same thing with the sewer. Same thing with your taxes. So they'll get their money. If the landlord can't pay his rent, they don't care. The next guy coming bidding at the tax sale is gonna pay their taxes. They're not gonna lose a dime, so there's no skin off their back on the government side
True.
to give the landlord any type of credit or any leniency.
Because it's just a rolling door, we'll get it from the next guy. Or
That's
gal.
it. And it's not fair to the person who's trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And it's, right now, I hate to say it, but it's the court and the governor not following the law, and they're just obliterating the statutes that were put in place to protect everybody, and they're just not following it.
It seems like, we've been doing evictions with you for 7 years now, and up until this happened, things were smooth, I have to say. Compared to Massachusetts, which is a disaster doing cases, it takes forever, it costs twice as much.
Right, they're a whole different system
Whole
here, right?
different system. Rhode Island was very quick, but it was also equitable because it was stipulations. Stipulation, out. Just give me my money, pay me extra per week or per month, and everybody's happy. The tenant's not homeless. I'm not there with a baseball bat or like a guy in the news. He took the door off the girl's apartment during COVID because she couldn't pay her rent. Like, people were going to drastic measures because of the way it was being handled.
Right, and the other thing that they took away was review dates. So if you did a payment plan, in my stipulations that were already pre-printed, because you need to keep the pressure on the tenants.
Yeah.
Because how can you tell a landlord, hey, they haven't paid the rent for 3 months, they don't have any money today, but they'll pay you tomorrow. If I could put a review date a week later, the landlord would say, okay, if not, they're out in a week. But if I can't put a review date, how can I convince the landlord to take a payment tomorrow when they haven't gotten rent for 2 months, but yet if they don't pay it, sorry, we're not gonna be back in court for another 4 to 6 weeks? No landlord's gonna take it. So they're actually, by not putting a review date, you're almost forcing landlords to tell people to move. So again, that's another thing they didn't realize. By taking away that simple review date, you're forcing the landlord not to take a payment plan.
There's a lot to that.
Right? And they're not realizing it. That's the problem. That's why I'm getting so frustrated. Believe me, if I could retire right now, I would.
Really?
Because I'm fed up with it. I truly am.
Really?
Yes. It's just aggravating because no one follows the rules. Or only the schmuck follows the rules, like the landlord or me, but yet the courts and the government can say, oh, this rule doesn't apply right now, or this. And on top of that now, executive order by the chief judge supposedly is you can't get any cost or attorney's fees
Yeah, I saw that today.
Right, like why? I'm pretty sure there's something around somewhere that nobody should interfere with a private contract.
Right.
You
It's in
know?
our lease, it says tenant pays
Right,
reasonable
but they're
attorney.
interfering with the private contract. They have no legal right to do that. If they do, please show me, because I don't know where that, I don't know where that one is. So that's another thing that's sticking the landlords. They're making the landlords eat the cost of eviction on top of not getting their rent. At least get a judgment for the money, yes, okay, maybe just
Yeah, maybe you
for
get
the
it.
sake of argument, getting it, but I mean, but even tenants that are willing to pay, you still can't ask for it. They're saying you can't get it. So again, why are you penalizing the landlord for following the law? You're just saying, okay, law doesn't apply today. Why?
We feel it shouldn't.
Why? And then the other thing is, if they're trying to keep these people in here and they say, okay, we'll pay the money, well, why not pay all the money they owe? Not part of the money or no money. Just why are you sticking the landlord again for it? Where's the rationale at? Will we save money? You get $7 million, use it. You can wipe out every eviction in the state right now for a lot less than $7 million, and everybody be happy and living there in their house.
It's a good idea.
I don't mind getting paid for an eviction and then paying it and dismissing it. I know. The only good thing that they did when they changed the wording on the summonses, it said,
This is the only good thing?
the only good thing that I can see so
There
far.
is positivity.
One positive thing, and I told them to keep it if and when they ever put the summonses back to the 9-day summons. In the wording of the summons, it says, please contact the attorney within 5 days or the other party
Yeah.
to try to work something out. And if you don't, then they put it on the calendar. That has been working a little bit. I have been getting people calling me, hey, says I have to call.
Yeah, us too.
Right, and so I've been able to work some cases out, which in turn, I'm able to do the stipulation in my office, and I have them sign the affidavit that's required, and I submit it, it comes off the calendar. So that's one less person
Yep.
off the calendar that doesn't need to come to court.
Yep.
So they should keep that wording if and when they ever change it,
Yeah, yeah.
but that wording should stay. That's the only good thing out of this mess that I can see.
Because it gets me as the landlord the money soon,
Sometimes.
saves you from going to court, less people
And,
interacting.
right, and it's like, yeah, that's, so
It gets
that's,
the money sooner.
yeah, again, if you don't keep the pressure on the people, they'll just wait to the very end until they're
Right.
forced
Right.
to come to court, forced to pay it, or forced to move. And again, if you don't have any money and no place to go, you're gonna stretch it as long as you can stretch it.
Sure. So what's your opinion of like constables in the moving company? Do you feel that they're getting a shorter end of this stick now because that doesn't even happen?
That's a good point. Here's the problem. The constable, whoever runs the Constable Association, is committing an antitrust violation. An antitrust is when a group gets there, just like a pharmacy company or a business, and they set the prices unfairly. That's an antitrust violation.
Okay.
They're not allowed to all get together and set a price and to screw everybody. It should be, this is a capitalist society, it should be competition.
Yep.
Okay, so before the constables, in other words, you don't want to go and pay to move someone out. Once you get an execution, you want to go to the tenant and say, hey, look, get out in a couple of days on your own. Go get your own U-Haul.
Yep.
Because if not, it costs the landlord
Thousands.
$1,000, $2,000 to pick them up and move them out. So the constables before, they call it a scare out, or not really scare out, they just go and talk to them and say, look,
Yeah.
can you move out in a couple of days? If you can't, we're gonna come back with the moving company, okay? They were charging $50, $75 to do that.
Now it's $250.
They're forcing them to charge $200 just to talk to them to say, are you going to move out?
Yep.
Then if they have to come back with the moving company, they're forcing them to charge another $350.
Minimum fee.
Minimum fee. So now they're screwing the landlords $550 when in fact it should have been $350 or $400 at most. So I actually called the attorney, I can't remember what his name was, didn't even return my phone call, the attorney for the Constable Association. I said, you guys are committing an antitrust violation here, it's clear. I mean, the next thing is probably calling the Attorney General's office. I mean, it affects every single one of our clients that when
Yeah.
we have to move someone out or even do it. So unfortunately, I've been telling my landlords, why don't you go there first? And just ask the tenant to move out. Say, look, I have an execution. Can you move out in a couple of days? If they say no, then you just call the constable and say, just get the moving company.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's right because I think it's just like a third party. Like you can't negotiate directly, but if you have a third party coming in, it works a little better. So if you can get the constable to come in and say, hey, move out, or I'm gonna come with the move, works a little more than the landlord coming, because they have already stuck the landlord, they don't believe the landlord's gonna do anything anyway. So that's that problem. So that's another thing that has arisen, I don't think out of covert, I just think out of greed, that they're trying to up what they're making. But I think
you're preventing them from getting more business by saying to Joey homeowner, why don't you go talk to the tenant, maybe you guys work something out. That's one less fee that the constable's gonna make because of their actions that you don't agree with.
yeah, right, and I'm telling them to do that. So why pay, if you were gonna pay 50, 75 to go ahead, but not, why should you waste $200?
For a phone call.
Or just a quick knock on the door, hey, you're gonna move out?
Right. What's the constable's defense to why they're charging these rates? Do you know that?
Because they're told by the association that they have to charge it, or they will be in trouble. That's the whole point of an antitrust. They are being forced
Got it.
to do it.
So it's top level.
Yeah,
of
it's the
association.
Constable, Rhode Island Constable Association, and they're regulated by the Department of Business Regulation as well right now.
Ah,
So, that was a phone call I was gonna make, and I unfortunately got sidetracked doing other stuff, and it kinda just went to the side, and I didn't make a
well,
phone
hopefully
call.
now that comes to the surface.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was an association that controlled pricing. I thought each constable was like a contractor.
they
Like
are
a-
independent, but they
they're
belong to the
independent.
association, just like me, I'm an attorney,
Yeah,
but I belong to the Bar Association,
Yeah.
but I can charge anything
They
I
don't
want.
say, Steve, you have to charge
Right.
$500 for Turk.
Because then it would be an antitrust violation, that is correct.
Interesting.
So, that's the problem with that. That's still going on, so.
And what about the moving aspect? Like that's something we've dealt with maybe less than 10 times. Where the moving company actually comes in, they take the tenant's items, bring it to storage. The landlord pays for that
Upfront, they pay for the moving and 1 month storage upfront,
1 month?
1 month.
Okay. But then when the tenant goes to reclaim their items, say it's Jones Moving and Storage, they go to Jones, they pay the bill, and then the landlord gets compensated back?
Yes, if they pay it, but most of the time it's cheaper for them to go buy new furniture than it is to get back
So
the money.
the moving companies end with these stalls of just junk.
And then they sell it or buy it themselves.
Wow.
And here's what happened, I think a lot of them want to buy it themselves because they let it go on for like 6 months without payment and they auction it off. Then they auction it and then their money comes off the top first.
Yeah.
So that extra 6 months get paid. So if they're owed $600 for the extra 6 months and somebody bids 600, they take the 600, give them the stuff. Sorry, you're not getting your $2,000 back. So that's what so they don't care who buys it back or when, so they'll let it go on to build up their fees. So they're getting paid for their storage 100% of the time, and they don't care about the landlord's back money. And the other problems with the moving companies right now, or have been since June 2nd, is everybody's COVID crazy. I had an execution from Superior Court. This girl had been in there since January. She goes, I'm sick, I have COVID. Now the constable doesn't want to go in. The police don't want to go in. The moving companies won't go in. We're not going to expose our guys to COVID. Now you wait another 2 weeks, I'm still sick. Can you show me the paperwork? Of course they don't. Now by the time you get someone to go there, you wasted another 2 weeks. That person, just by saying, I've got COVID, has gotten another free month out of the deal. So that's what was happening. I don't know if it's still happening, but that happened specifically to one of my clients, a few weeks back. Everybody's so paranoid about it. And I said, can't you just get her out of the house and therefore nobody's in the house and get the movers to move them? Well, I can't get the police won't get involved. And that's half the time they go, oh, it's a civil matter. And they don't want to get involved.
So yeah, let's talk about that. The police, from my experience, seem like they don't want to get involved in evictions because it's really like a thorn in their side. It's not what they do. It's not, something they witnessed or are, going to serve a warrant. They're just like, it seems up
They
in
don't
the
want to
air.
be bothered.
Yeah.
And then they wait until there's a confrontation and then they want to arrest the constable for causing it because the constable has an executive order, a court order getting these people out. If she can't physically remove them, the police are supposed to assist, at least removing them from the premises so the locks can be changed.
So that's where it gets black and white, is if the constable's unsuccessful in getting the tenant out, the police should go in
They're supposed to.
and peacefully remove as
Each
much as
police
possible.
department is a little different.
But how is that not black and white?
It is, but some people interpret the law differently. There was a case in Cumberland I had last year where my constable had the execution, and the Cumberland Police refused to go in, saying it's a civil matter. And they read the statute saying they don't have to get someone in for trespass. I said, but it's not trespass. There's a court order that supersedes that statute that you're reading. And this police officer, the captain, I don't remember his name, it was Cumberland, wouldn't agree to it. I had to wait an extra 2 weeks, go back to court, get another order before they finally did something. And by that time, the tenant was ready to move on their own anyway. So they're not even following their rules themselves sometimes, depending on the police department and honestly, even depending on the police officer who happens to show up.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
So the constables are pretty much at their own discretion when they go to try to do it themselves,
Yes.
so they don't even have to get the police.
No, they're independent contractors on that.
Do they have arrest powers, or can they physically remove a tenant? Like, what's their limit?
That one I'm not sure. You'd have to talk to a constable on that one. I know I don't know if they can arrest them. They have a badge, but I don't think anybody can do a civil arrest, I guess. But they always if there's a problem, they always call the police, and then the police usually do the arrest. You know, sometimes there's one particular constable that's always called the police, but the police usually assist them because it usually gets a little crazy sometimes. But most of them, most constables can do it on their own without police involvement. So, that's that.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be interviewing Mike Clementi,
That should be interesting.
I believe on Monday or Tuesday, and it should be interesting because he not only is a constable, but he also does detective work.
Yeah.
Which he tells me stories, and it's like, oh, I'm going here today to do this, or I'm going here today to do that, and it's like the amount of stuff that's happening.
If you see the craziness of tenants, like today, I was doing an eviction as a termination case. This woman who's a nurse makes $80,000 a year, had basically no furniture in the house. The landlord goes in, she's on second floor, and she has 4 cats, a dog, or at least 4 cats anyway. He shows me pictures. There wasn't basically 6-inch space anywhere on 2 floors that wasn't cat feces on the floor. He calls animal control. Animal control calls the city condemns the place. And and so he has to clean. The tenant's now moving out at the end of the month, but he's already cleaned it up. And just kidding with him, I said, "Why'd you call animal control?" It's obviously she feeds the cats well.
Mounds everywhere.
Mounds and mounds. But yeah, you get hoarders. Like one of the tenants on Gorman sends me a picture of this tenant who's sitting at their kitchen table, and picture the normal hoarding scenario of stuff piled everywhere. I said, I don't see the problem. I only see 4 cats on the kitchen table. What's wrong with that? But yeah, you get some beauties. But
yeah, we've had a couple tenants die. They fall
Right.
on their head, or drug overdose. It's like you never know what's coming around the corner.
yeah, and that's another thing. Maybe a lot of landlords should try to get like a next of kin information, maybe on an application now, to try to get who's the next of kin, if something happens, who do you call?
Mm-hmm.
But some people just don't have any relatives or an elder. I had that elderly years ago. I was managing a property on Plainfield Street, and I had no way to get a hold of any relatives. It was an elderly woman, and she passed away, in the apartment. But yeah, that happens.
So what do you do if a tenant dies and they leave behind whatever, and you can't get in touch with a next of kin?
Legally, you're supposed to actually file a probate estate and appoint a guardian ad litem, and then do the eviction from the guardian ad litem. That's what you're supposed to do.
But what really happens?
In reality,
you
make an effort. Look, you make an effort to go through the stuff to see if you can find a phone number, a name, somebody, and say, please just take it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, you can find somebody, a friend, a relative, a distant relative, or somebody that will come in and take what they want, and then say, okay, throw away the rest. If there's no children and they take what they want, and there's garbage left, well, and honestly, who's going to come and complain?
Right.
But you never know. If you do, and they say, hey, you threw out my gold ingots, they were saving for me. And that's another thing with landlords. They want to do a self-help eviction, and I say, please do not. Well, I can put it in my garage. I can do it. And I say, no, because they're going to say, where's my 65-inch TV? Where's my diamond bracelet? Where's the, it's not worth it to go through that, to get sued. That's why you pay the moving company and you step back, and if the tenant says something's missing, you go, call them.
We had one up the street here, at Summer Street. It was a constable, and it was, I think it was Jones Moving. And it was a commercial space. They came out and removed all of his items, put it in storage, and he says, oh, you know, where's my, I think it was TV or like my MacBook or something. So the constable goes, oh, here's the footage from the entire process.
Yeah, Mike does that.
Where's your laptop, buddy?
Yeah.
And then the guy disappeared.
Hmm.
But the body cams, even on the constables, are great.
Yeah, you need them. And I don't know if a lot of people in commercial don't know this, but you don't need to move anything out on a commercial eviction. You can you go, you lock the place down, you take an inventory of everything that's
Sell
there. Yeah, you can sell it, but you have to check to see if there's any UCC lien on anything. Like when that gym I was talking about.
What is UCC?
It's a Uniform Commercial Code. It's a notice that's filed in the Secretary of State's office saying, I have a lien on the property. It's almost like a mortgage is for real estate.
Got
The UCC lien is for personal property. Like say you bought all these desks and you financed it.
Got
That person would record that lien with the Secretary of State. So if anybody sued you and they say, well, I'm taking all your desks, and they say, no, I have first priority on that. So that's what they did with a lot of exercise equipment.
Yeah.
So what happened was, most of the equipment in that particular case was not UCC, there was only a lien on certain equipment. And they didn't want it, and my guy like paid him off for like 12 grand, and he kept all the equipment. Then he turned around and sold it. So it's a way for commercial people to recoup some of their money
Yeah.
on certain businesses, but a lot of businesses, depending on what the business is, they're gonna have UCC lien, and that person's gonna come in and just take the property back.
How do you check if like you're a landlord and you're like, oh, I got all these, there's 50 desks, 50 chairs. How do I check if there's a
You
UCC?
go to the Secretary of State's website, and you just look up UCC liens, and there's a database.
And we'll list it.
Yeah, and that's another thing I would recommend to landlords. Before you rent anybody, try to check online to see if they've been evicted before.
Oh, yeah.
I've done evictions over and over for the same people, same tenants, but different landlords,
You just bounce around.
because the landlords don't do their homework.
But if somebody took your advice, right, and checked every person, if every tenant in Rhode Island was getting checked, and you're saying that if somebody's got a bad track record, you don't take them, then what are you going to say? You know, I'm being devil's advocate here. What are you going to say? Because there's going to be 1,000 people, or 2,000, or 10,000 that won't qualify for
They
housing.
won't. They won't. And,
So
it,
what's
and
your
it plus it put
solution?
me out of business on top of it. I'll lose all my repeat business.
Hey, 12th one's free.
Yeah, right.
So what's your solution to those people though?
All right, here's my solution. I say do a background check, okay? If they've been evicted, dig a little deeper. If you see they've been evicted once 5 years ago,
Okay.
and they've been okay for the last 5 years, and they're working, and they have pay stubs, you give them a shot. But if you see they've been evicted every single year for the last 5 years, like, no thanks, regardless, because you know you're gonna get stuck.
Yep.
I mean, look, people lose their jobs, people get sick, people get divorced. I'm not saying it's a blanket, don't rent to them because they've been evicted. See if they've been evicted, see how many times they've been evicted, see when they've been evicted. Because some people bounce from one house right as they're leaving, they jump in the other. 3 months later, that landlord's calling me. And it's almost like in the old days, I don't know, before your time, TV dinners, right? Picture TV dinner. You buy it, you eat it, you crunch it, you throw it away. That's how they think of apartments. People who move in like that, they get, rent-a-center furniture,
Yep.
right? They just carry their clothes in.
Yep.
They demolish the place. 6 months later, go, see ya, walk out. You can come and get my furniture. I'm taking my backpack with clothes. I'm done. Now they treat apartments like disposable. I've never in my life punched a hole in the wall. I've never punched a hole in a door. I've never broken a refrigerator handle. I never dented a refrigerator.
Left the water on.
Right. Never overflow. Right. So it's the mentality of people, and it's scary.
Yeah.
Of the mentality of people in the look. Here's the funny part. I think of myself as just average intelligence. I've got some common sense, but I screw up things now and then myself. And I come across certain people, it's like, how did you walk here? How did you get here? I mean, sometimes you don't, how they survived on the mentality that they have.
Right.
They just don't understand basic math.
Right.
Like I have people arguing with me about what the rent they owed. And I'm trying to show it to them on a piece of paper. Black and white, here it is.
Yep.
No, you're wrong. I'm like, well, 2 + 2 is 4. You haven't paid 4 months rent. But that's not that many people. But again, you can be selective, do your homework. That's all I have to say, is do your homework. When I rent to somebody, I check the evictions. I don't do a credit check. I don't bother with a credit check because I want to see show me your current pay stubs.
Yep.
Show me you're working. Show me you can afford. Let me see if you've been evicted, and let me see if there's any criminal record. I mean, if you got a DUI or something like that, I don't care.
Yep.
Okay? But if it gets to the point where I see you've got a violent record or child molesting, or I can't rent, because most of my units are multi-units, I can't afford to put you with anybody else.
And you can discriminate based on criminal record?
You're not, well, I would say you're not supposed to. I think you have a right to choose the best applicant for your, so it's not like you're.
Can I put on my ad, I don't accept felony?
No, because again, there's different things of felonies. There's a blue collar felony. Okay, I embezzled from my boss. That has no bearing on your rent, okay?
Nick.
Somebody embezzling? No. But anyway.
Checkbook stop drawer.
Yeah, so no, I wouldn't do that, but what I tell every landlord is this, and I'm doing it now. I'm renting one of my apartments now. Anybody who comes in, here's the application, fill it out. I'm gonna do my due diligence, and I'm just gonna pick the best one for me. It's not like I'm rejecting the other ones. I'm not per se rejecting the guy with whatever, criminal.
You're going with
I'm just trying to put the best person in my unit that is gonna get along with the other people. Because again, usually there's 6 units and everybody, and like right now in one of my units, when we redid the building, we didn't have the hindsight. We insulated all the walls, and we had like a 2-foot gap between each ceiling. We figured that should be enough. No, the sounds are amplifying through, and every tenant, 3 tenants are always complaining about the one above them. So now we had to hire an insulating company. It's going to cost almost $10,000 just to insulate the 3 floors in between the tenants.
Just for sound.
Just for sound, because it's after the fact.
You get hit with these oddity things.
Right, so again, a piece of advice, you're redoing an apartment, insulate the ceiling with soundproof insulation.
Jeez,
Ceilings are,
I still can't get over the 2 different roofers tarp balloon.
yeah, I have 2 different properties, right?
Flood,
Yeah.
the retaining wall,
The retaining wall, and now the structural
Plumber
damage on the
guy.
other, oh yeah.
structural
I've gotten
damage.
screwed every which way, so again, it makes no difference whether you're an attorney or not, you get screwed by bad contractors left and right.
And you can do all the background checks you want, and it's like,
And I still get screwed around. One time, years ago, when I first had a house on 23 Penn Street, and my client on America Street says, "Oh, my mother needs an apartment. Please rent to my mother's an elderly woman." She brought in roaches to and I'm talking monster roaches.
Yeah.
Like after she moved out, I was there spraying them like on the ceiling one at a time.
Yeah.
That's how big they were. They move out. Her son, who was an ex-con, moved in. I said it was okay. When they left, he broke into the apartment downstairs below them and took my brand new refrigerator. I called the cops. Well, do you have the serial number? Well, I didn't have all the serial numbers because I bought 6 and I said I don't really have it, but this is the first 5 numbers and I don't know the rest. Blah, 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 blah. They track him down to his new house, open the door, there's my new refrigerator right next to his refrigerator of his new apartment. They didn't arrest him, but they said give it back to him. So now I had to pay someone
to go pick it up.
pick it up and bring it back, and they didn't arrest him. So that's another thing.
You
Every stove, refrigerator, microwave, make, model, and serial number.
Wow, that's good advice. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
We had a tenant on Broadway here in Pawtucket. He actually worked for us, maintenance guy. Rented from us, which is a no-no. We learned that early.
As long as you keep it separate.
It's impossible. He called the main emergency line and said, "Hey, it's Dwayne. My stove has gone missing." his stove. Big gas stove, 200 pounds. Just
Gas on gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we go up there, and he's there, and he's like, "Yeah, it's gone." And we're like, "How did this fucking stove? Like that's?" He ended up pawning it for $20
Oh,
to
Jesus.
buy crack.
Yeah, well, that leads to the other thing, security cameras. I had security cameras on a couple of buildings and I was paying, Cox Cable, whatever. And I had so much trouble with the camera systems. They're breaking down, they're not recording. I was having trouble with the signal. I finally gave up. The systems are still there, they're recording partially, but not where I need it. So if you can get a good system and you already have some internet service, I would recommend it. Because I used to be able to, look at my phone and see, hey, who threw that chair or the mattress next to the dumpster? You could go back and figure out, and then I would go back and I had cameras in the hallway and I could figure out which apartment they came from.
Wow.
But now I can't do that, because now I need all new systems. But if you can do it, I would recommend that.
Or even some clients put the fake ones with the blinking red light. They look official. Who knows if they psychologically deter
It's like they do, and I'll tell you why.
honest people?
On Gorman and Elm Street, people were throwing shit on the side of the dumpster. They were just getting garbage. And then, of course, when they emptied the garbage and put the dumpster down, it ended up on top, and you couldn't get it out.
Right.
So they were doing it, then they were putting furniture, then they were putting construction debris. So I sent a notice to all the tenants, and I bought one of those hunting cameras, and I hung it up on the house.
Wow.
Since I hung it up on the house,
Zero problem.
Zero problem.
It's real though?
It's real, yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
real. I go there, would have to take the SD card out to see. But I called somebody and said, has there been any garbage on the ground in the last 2 weeks? Nope.
You know what I would do is, those, the football players that they, what's it called? You stick them on your wall. What's that called? A fat head? It's like a life-size picture
Oh,
of
picture
you.
of somebody watching you.
I would stick your, with like a suit on the side of a building instead of a camera. I think that would work. But last thing, Steve, what would you want to say to all of us landlords, from your 30-some-odd year career? Do you say that real estate is still the best way to wealth? Do you think that it has changed? What's your thoughts on the future of it? Is it still a good investment to own rental?
I always invested in real estate. I started off, as everybody else, investing in the stock market when I first started. And I wasn't making any money at all. And I was losing money, I was going back. And I got so fed up, I took the money out of there and I bought my first piece of property. Then, again, a little help with my father, and plus the money I made, and I was able to get loans on my own at that time it was Credit Union Central Falls. I used to get loans. They were a little bit higher on the interest rate, but they used to give me a loan for commercial properties at no problem. So I was able to buy properties. That 40 grand, 10 years later, at the height of the market, made me $1.5 million. Okay? So yes, I would say real estate is the way to go, but it's careful, because again, I was taking money out of my pocket, I was working 7 days a week. It's not a slam dunk. You don't think you're just gonna buy a piece of property and, the money's gonna come rolling in.
Yep.
It's not gonna happen that way. It's a long-term thing. If you can get to and used to take out 10-year mortgages, not 15 or 30. So I used to sweat it out, but I knew in the long run I was better off. So at that point, when you're done with the mortgages, now you can.
You would really sweat it out.
Yeah. So, and then, like I said, and I sold everything, and then I went back into the market. So right now, my partner and I have 35 units.
Okay.
And all but 6 are rented, and the only ones that are not rented are the ones we're working on in West Warwick. And the funny part is the rental agent that I use, Cindy, who has helped me for years, said that she has never had so many phone calls for empty apartments since COVID. And I think the reason is because all these people are getting evicted. That's the other problem. As a landlord, don't let people go beyond the 2 months, because it's cheaper for them to move. And I think that's what's happening. All these people who owe 5 or 6 months rent, why should they pay the landlord 5 or 6 months when they can get a brand new apartment for 2 months rent?
True.
So,
But even with all these downfalls and detours,
real estate's the way to go. Absolutely.
Always.
Because this way, look, stocks, you have no control over the value of what goes up, what goes down. To me, I like tangible stuff.
Yep.
I can go touch it. This is
Or you
mine.
can go paint
I
it.
own it.
Right.
I do what I want with it.
Yep.
I can see it, I can go check it, if something needs to be fixed, I go fix it. So like I said, my father owned property from the 50s, it's something I grew up with, I've always enjoyed it. And to me, if I had the time, going around changing light bulbs, it's mindless work. To me, it's relaxing, because there's no pressure, I just go do it. I mean, we also put, coin-op laundries in all the buildings. I'm unfortunately having a lot of trouble with them. The newer machines just don't last, and it's costing me a lot. Like every time you go, it's $100 just for them to show up. Then the pot, then it's $300. Yes, the machines are $1,000 brand new, but I put them in there more for conveniences of the tenant, and to control the water and sewer.
Absolutely.
You can't give anybody. The last time I gave someone a free washing machine, the neighbors were coming down, family was coming down, free water, and the water bill, water's connected to the sewer, and every time you have a water bill, the sewer bill. So I do it like $1 a load, just for them to have a convenience. I'm not looking to
Keeps
make.
it in check.
But the problem is right now with all the maintenance on the machines, not even making any money for the water and sewer, they're just kind of maintaining themselves.
Right.
But I'm okay with that, and I, put the house meters on every house, so I pay the nickel, so no one can come and complain. That's another thing. If you have an old house, every tenant used to have a switch to the hallway.
The red.
Now they're bitching, I'm paying the lights for the second floor hallway. Yeah, what is it, a nickel a month for the one bulb? So that's another thing. If you buy a 3-family, either put the house meter in, because you're gonna need it for the hardwire system anyway, or if you have a 2-family and put it on one and then maybe include the electric, but I am firmly against including any utilities.
Right on.
Because they abuse them. Years ago on Hendrick Street, I grew up in the house on 116 Hendrick Street in Mount Pleasant. And my father had rented to a Section 8 tenant and included electricity the first year. And she used, today she used to have several monster air conditioners in the window. And I said, back then the electric bill was like $300 and change. And her answer was, what do you expect me to sweat? That was her answer. So the next year when the renewal came out, we took utilities out. And I remember going back on a summer day, and she's sitting there on a hot day like this, no air conditioners in the window, and sweating, and she's dabbing her brow with the towel. So that's the problem. The tenants will abuse the heat and the air, especially you drive by in the winter, the heat's on, you see the windows open, and your blood pressure goes up. Yeah, I do have high blood pressure, probably a little bit too, from years of being stressed with the real estate, and there's nothing you do about it. So I refuse to do it. And another thing landlords get caught short on is when you rent to a new tenant, shut the gas and electric off. Call to get it shut, because a lot of times the tenant won't switch it over. The bill that ends up going to the house, you don't see the bill, then National Grid says, oh, you owe us $1,000. The bill's been on you. And another thing you gotta watch out for National Grid, sneaky bastards. Like certain tenants move out, so I would put the gas and electric on my name for that apartment temporarily while we're working on it. Next thing I know, there's $300, $400, $500 added to the bill. Oh, well, you owe this bill from, and I go, from where? Oh, well, and then they wouldn't even tell you, you'd have to call them. You know what it is to stay on the phone with them to try to get through to somebody. And I said, well, show me the bill where this is from. The last time they stuck $1,100 electric bill that they tried to stick me for the house prior to with 2 tenants, that they were confused on which one had which meter. Because on Elm Street, for whatever reason, the electric bill's address, National Grid's address, does not match the actual address. So they're always confused.
Shouldn't they be synced up with the post
They
office?
should. They're telling me I have to go to town hall and straighten it out there first before they would correct it.
Like get your deed altered or something?
I don't know how the town assigns the addresses. Like the houses the front house is 160, it comes this way. 161 is first floor. 163 left and right, which is second floor, but it's split like a duplex. The house behind it is 159. They have the house behind listed as 163 rear, even though it's 159 first, second, and third. Front house is 161 first and 163 second, left, and right. That's the street addresses, but they have it all checked. And I've tried numerous times to straighten it out, and I'm like, just forget it, just you deal with it. So now, when a tenant moves out, I don't even put the gas and electric in my name anymore.
You're that jaded.
Yeah, because I spent an hour trying to straighten out. Now I got one similar. I haven't even straightened it out yet. They have collection people calling me. They added 3 bills, like another $200. Like, send me the bill. If I owed it, if that's the other thing. I have house meters on every house. Every bill gets emailed me or mailed to my office. How can you tell me when I put a house, this particular apartment, and I tell you to mail it to my office, you continue to mail it to the address, and then 2 months later, a tenant moves in and the bill never gets paid, and now a year later, you attach it and say you owe it. Why couldn't you find me for the last year?
Right.
That's what annoys me with National Grid.
Well, you were talking about antitrust and, things like that. I feel that National Grid has a lot of power and also a lot of lobbying power. Oh, we gotta do our 18% raise.
Yeah, they're the only game in town for
Like,
gas.
How are we, how is that legit?
No, it's not, because here's the thing. They don't have to advertise. They're the only...
They do, they advertise, here with you, here for you.
For
like,
what?
Like it's
For
a
what?
coddling,
Right, they're spending money on advertisement. You're the only game in town, my friend.
Right.
I mean, there are these other suppliers or that try to get your bill, and they one is a supply charge, one's like a transmission charge, one's an actual. So all these fees, and they try to
American Power.
Yeah, they try to squeeze in between. But they're the worst consumer, customer service.
Oh yeah, they don't.
They're horrible. I had to just fight them. I almost had to sue them. I had to file a complaint with the Public Utilities Commission. The gas guy goes in, had 2 tenants moving in the same house. One a month before, they turn on the gas, no problem. Second tenant moves in. Gas man comes to turn on the right apartment, says, oh, I smelled gas on the left apartment. Now, they just turned it on a month earlier. They're supposed to just shut the meter off. That's all they're supposed to do.
Yep.
He disconnects
The
the flex hoses, damages the flex hoses. I have to call the plumber. Cost me $500, exactly $493 to be exact, to fix the pipes and reconnect it. And now my tenant is without gas for almost a week because of them. Now they don't want to pay me. They said, no, we don't take pots of pipes. We don't touch them. I said, well, who did it? I said, my manager let him in. The pipes were connected. We get a call an hour later. The pipes are disconnected.
Right.
Who did it?
So
Then
you submitted a PUC.
I said,
plan?
right, put a complaint. I said, who? So then they put me to this person, and she told me I was arrogant to her. I said,
Why
you
isn't it
did
even
it.
talked about?
You did it. I want you to pay for it. I'm not asking to make money. Just
Yeah.
pay the money. I had to pay the plumber. Out of the blue, they sent me a release for half the money. So basically, I told her, thanks, but no thanks.
Yep.
And it went on, and then I said, you want to call the property manager? Call him. He was there. He let them in. He saw how it was before and how it was after. No one was there in between.
Yep.
So she called him. He explained what happened. He called me to tell me. I said, well, I'll take him as a witness, when I get to it. And she told him that I was arrogant to her. When I said, your guy did the damage. I wasn't mean. I was just stating fact. You did it. Your guy did it. You pay for it. End of story. 9 months later, they finally sent me the check for the full amount.
There you go.
But it's like, look at the aggravation I have to go through when I should not have.
And most people don't have the wherewithal,
Right, they-
time,
that's right.
or even the stature. Like, I'm sure your complaint got in there because it's like, oh, this is Attorney Steve Conti, blah, blah, blah. Like,
But most people won't follow up.
right.
Most landlords won't know enough to contest the bill that's not their charge. They just pay it not knowing. Because even the people who call for collection, the answer is, it's your house, your pipes would have froze, but it's not my damn bill.
Right.
Go chase the person who you gave credit to turn it on. You okayed that person. You go chase them. But the problem is with tenants, there's another thing with tenants. Say there's a family. Okay, the electric and gas is in your name in this apartment. You don't pay. You burn the gas and electric. Okay, now your wife's name. Then you put it in your kid's name. Then you put it in your sister's name. But so eventually you're gonna run out of people. But then that's how they stick the landlord. Oh, I can't get it in right now. Can you keep it on in your name and I'll pay you every month? I would advise do not do that.
Totally.
Right off the bat, do not agree to be nice to them and hold it for a month, 2 months, because then it comes to normal course of business. Now you can't shut it off if
Did
they
you
stop
take the
paying you.
deposit? Did you use their deposit to offset utilities? if that
But
happens.
the problem is you can't shut it off if you agree.
No, like if they moved out and they owed you $1,000.
Oh, sure.
You can
Absolutely,
apply the
absolutely.
deposit.
Absolutely.
So there's a little recourse
Yeah,
there.
but you know you're gonna need that money to redo the apartment, so you're gonna still be in the hole. So the point is, don't do it in the first place.
Got it.
You can't be nice. You're nice, you're the one that's getting screwed. They're only can take advantage of the nice people. That's the problem. They can't take advantage of the person who tells them to go take a hike.
True.
So if they can't afford to turn the gas and electric on right off the bat, that should be a red flag to the landlord.
Yep.
That you're gonna have a problem. That they can't afford it, or they're gonna stick you for the rent, or whatever. So that's another red flag to keep an eye on.
And is there any cities or towns that you haven't done an eviction in, or had a tenant from, or have you evicted somebody from every town and city in Rhode Island?
The bulk of my work is Providence, Woonsocket, in that order.
Yeah.
Providence, Woonsocket,
Tucket?
Pawtucket, Central Fall are pretty close. And then, everything else, Johnston, Cranston, that's in the Kent County pile. I mean, I've done Westerly, I've done Newport, I've done probably like maybe a Portsmouth one, maybe, some in the higher end, because the problem is there's not too many multi-units in those areas.
Got it.
Like in
But you
Portsmouth.
could still evict somebody from a single family house.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying, I've probably done every city.
How about like Block Island or something like that? Have you evicted somebody out there?
Block Island would be into Newport Court.
And you don't,
I
you're not down there?
probably if I did it be 20 years ago. I don't recall doing any from then. It's possible, but yeah, I mean, I don't think bad tenants discriminate where they live. You would think. I mean, even people who rent houses for like $2,500 a month still get stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I can't understand is if you're a tenant and you can pay $2,500 a month, why aren't you buying your own house? Is your credit that blown out, or you know what I mean? You can afford it, but yeah, I think I've been everywhere, done everything. I've been in every court. And years ago, they used to have even more courts. They used to have a court here in Pawtucket. It was an old, I can't remember where it was, off 146, and it looked like an old castle. That used to be that district
Really?
court. Yeah, they used to have multiple district courts until they condensed them. Yeah, years ago. And there was no security. There was no guard at the front door. There was no metal detector to go through. Everybody was just to walk in and out. The good old days when
Like
you didn't have to
airport
worry about
used to
getting
be.
blown up or killed or shot or whatever.
Or sick.
Let's say, yeah.
Interesting. Well, great interview here with Steve Conti.
I thank you for.
And you don't advertise, so we're not going to tell you how to get in touch with Steve. You got to figure it out.
Yeah, Google me. Yeah, people go, I couldn't find you. Google. I think you can
It's
Google me.
there.
You can find me that way. I'm on Smith Street in North Providence, but whatever. But yeah, it's just work. Look, ask someone who's has property that you know. Ask them who they use.
Yeah.
Because usually they're happy with some people. I mean, there are some people that will stick to a bad attorney only because of familiarity. They don't want to. Some people don't like change.
It's like a doctor. You don't want to change doctors.
Right, but there are attorneys who don't do a lot of evictions, and they'll charge you $1,000 to do
Yeah.
one, where I'm only charging half that because I do the volume. And I've heard crazy numbers where people were getting like $750 up front, and then they're going to charge them by the hour after to do a simple non-payment eviction. And that attorney probably doesn't know the nuances where you can get knocked out of the box on those technicalities.
Yep.
You know, the late fees in the letter, that's not
Or
a
sending it on Sunday or like.
but the late fees or
Yeah.
whatever, or just putting sending the letter on the 15th instead of the 16th.
Right.
So, but anyway, well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed a
Yeah.
couple hours. Hey Nick, we got what, 2 hours in?
I think it's a good 2 hours. And the thing is, like, Nick, he's excited to watch this, and we think the future of not advertising but education is long form.
I actually like your video. You do very good videos. I've been watching them.
Good.
You're excellent in the topics that you've been doing.
Oh.
I'm impressed. I truly am.
That means a lot.
I truly
There's
am.
a lot of people who aren't impressed, or they don't think this is valuable content, or this is insensitive. But it's like,
No,
what?
I think
we
it's
try
really-
to say right down the middle.
Yeah, this is what it is, and the facts are the facts, and and just the procedure that you do, that it's a good policy. I haven't been following completely, but like when somebody moves in or out, you video the apartment and then
Yeah.
post it and say, here's the link.
Yep.
Here's the link, and
It's in the cloud forever. But the long format, like you probably done interviews before, shows before. They give you 3 minutes, or like I went on a road show one time. They give me 120 seconds
well, that's nothing.
for it was like $1,000. So I get a 2 minutes.
Wait, you pay them or they pay you?
No, I pay them.
Oh, Jesus, all right.
You know, so you go on, and the host doesn't know shit about property management. So it's like,
How can you get that out in time?
what are you getting to? It's like after 2 minutes, you know my name and Nexus, and that's it. So that's what people are paying big money for. If you're a Cardi's, if you're a car dealership, you just want the brand.
The name.
name. So the 2 minutes for $1,000 is well worth it. But for us to give quality content to
Yeah,
people
do it
like,
yourself. Yeah, you're doing a good job, yeah.
you gotta give them 2 hours, and hopefully they can sit through this.
The last time I did an interview, the hour with Bob,
There you go.
I did
An hour.
years, but we didn't have the whole hour, but it took a lot of time. I think I had probably most of the hour, because then you had one other person there. But that was my first interview, and it's recorded. I think I still have it on the disc, but it was, and I only got one client from it, and that one client that called me for like 6 months before they actually hired me, would always call and ask a question. And that's another thing. I don't charge by the hour. I charge a flat fee.
Yep.
If somebody calls me and has a question, I normally answer them.
Yeah,
Just
you're
give
not
me,
gonna point one.
Now, yes, I'm a little impatient sometimes. I tell people I'm dyslexic. Give me the point. Tell me the bottom line first. Then you can tell me the story backwards if you need. I can't stand listening to his short story because A, I'm not charging you by the hour. And two, I don't honestly have the time to listen to a long story that means nothing at the end of the story.
Right.
So people want to tell me the long version, and I'm like, no. Do they pay the rent? Do you just want them out?
Right.
What do you want? Tell me what it is.
Humans, they want to give you the.
I know, I don't have, yeah, even Michelle gets mad at me. You're pissing off your client. Like, you're not letting them
You
talk.
piss me off.
And I was like, but I don't need it. I said, look, let me do it my way. Like, even today, I'm in court. I said, look, they started going on. I said, please stop. Let me just ask my questions first. If we don't come to an agreement, then you can tell me you're part of the story. And most of the time, I can, ask like 3 questions. It's very simple. You've seen it. It's like you get a tenant, and I take kind of the wind out of the sail. I ask them what they want to do.
Yeah.
So it seems nice. What would you like to do? Would you like to pay and
It
stay
seems
or
nice.
move? What do you want to do? So it's not like I'm telling them get the hell out.
Right. But you
Or
are.
give me the money, or give me just so I let them talk to me. And I say, okay, you want to pay? Next question, how much money do you have? How much money will you have? You don't have any money? Okay, then I can't do anything for you. When can you move out? Let's negotiate a time. And most of the time, 99% of the time I can do it. So when the judges see me having a trial,
Yep.
they know I've tried, and I usually can work out a case 99% of the time. That when that person goes in that courtroom, they know that person is not a rational person that you can make a reasonable deal with. I'm not trying to screw them. I'm giving them time. And as many times I've offered people a month to move out. No, it's not enough. It's not. Like, or the other, it was the child defense. You can't evict me. I have a child. And with a straight face, I would go, is it the landlord's? Only once the question, that was yes. 30 years. Only once it was yes. But it's like, come on, he's not, your landlord does not become your surrogate parent.
Right.
And they think it is. They think because they lost their job. Look, I feel bad for some people.
Yeah.
Some people are truly down and out, and I feel bad for them. I admit, and I try to help them. I don't say to anybody, hey, you're going to be up in 6 days, and I'm not negotiating. I don't do that. I mean, there was one time where I evicted a guy in North Providence, and we were in Kent County, because that's where the court was, and he lived in North Providence. I gave him a ride home after the eviction.
Wow.
And Michelle even said, how many people you evict that you would give him a ride home? I felt bad for the guy. He was
Wow.
going to have to take the bus. He didn't have a car. I said, come on, you're right
How
down the
much
street.
did you charge him?
I didn't charge him for a ride. It's like, come on, I'll give you a ride. Get back to we're going in the same direction. Come on.
Wow. That's
I
legit.
treat everybody fairly. I
Yeah.
have no discrimination. I mean, I went to Thurgood Marshall School of Law. Do you know
Texas.
Thurgood Marshall? Yeah, but Thurgood Marshall
Chief Justice.
was the first black chief. This was a black law school. I was their token white Italian from the north.
Wow.
Okay, so I have no prejudice against
Yep.
everybody. I don't see color. I just I treat everybody individually as a person. Some people are aggressive when they're trying to talk to you. Like I had a guy yesterday in Ken, and he was just chill. You calling me a liar? And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what I'm reading is not what you're telling me. I'm reading the lease that says you inspected the property. No, it's like you called me a liar, but you signed it.
Yep.
Some people are just that way. They just want to argue and just want to whatever.
Not solution focused.
Okay. Anyway, all right. Time for me to go. Get back to work. And I enjoyed this. Thank you
Cool,
again.
man.
Thanks
Great
again.
job.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
I'll look forward to seeing it. You can
Any
spice it
questions?
any way you want.
any questions that you have for Steve,
Yep.
post them down in the comments section below, and Steve will personally answer them. He won't charge you.
Just as long as they're short. No long. No novels, please.
Get to the point first, no story, all right? And once again, Greg from Nexus, your property, managed.